Hey guys, so just to clear things up, the way we want to go about this project here. Now I've got something brand new. I'm just going to show you how the sort of steps in this, right? So, for example, the idea here is that you're going to get your background like visible, right? So you open up your photo in Photoshop, and it should be about 2,000 pixels wide. Or you can make your own canvas and bring in your photo, whatever. The point is, you have your background. And then I'm just going to go ahead and start by creating a group. I'm going to call this group process GIF, right? I'm just going to call it that. And then I'm just going to duplicate this layer. Control J, duplicate layer, and drop it into that little group. And name this 01 background. Easy. And then what I'll do is I'll find this photo that I just found of me, right? I'll drop that in. And I guess I'll just drag this up here to the top, right? And I might just shrink this down slightly just to make sure I know what's going on here. And then, you know, what I'll do here is I'll just Control Alt Shift E, which will merge and copy. So even if everything else is invisible, this thing is still one thing, right? Just it's one thing, right? And then I'll just name this 02. Photo added. Drag that down, and then what I'll do here is I'll then just sort of come in close and I'll make a rough cutout here. Right. Okay. Okay, this is gonna look terrible, but I'm just gonna Alt mask this out. Oh, wait, rather mask it out, and then I'm gonna just what I can do from here. I'm just gonna convert this to a smart object, and then Control Alt Shift E, and then I'll call this 03 mask applied, right, and so on and so forth. Okay, so the idea once again is that you make a copy of each step. That way, you can have this process GIF cycle through the steps. You create your background, you add your photo, you cut your photo out, and then the next step might be, say for instance, doing the color correcting. I think that's what the next step is. Right? The color correcting, we use our curves adjustment layer. So once again, curves, and I just want to make this a bit darker all around. Maybe even make it a bit more blue. Maybe even make it a little more like sunset, so sort of like pull the green down, but then also pull the blues and the highlights down a bit too, introducing yellow to it. Right, so there's that, and then I just sort of do the same thing to me, add my curves, drag this down some just so I fit in a little bit better. Make a clipping mask just so it's affecting only me. Get my reds down, and maybe even take my blues down a smidge of the shadows just to have me sort of match up slightly. Right, like so. Okay, well, that's not quite right. Well, you get the idea. The idea, once again, just do your color corrections. Control Alt Shift and E, and makes a copy. Call it 04 color corrections. And then from here, you can just continue on. Now, what I did after this was I just right-clicked on all this, stuck both those layers there, and converted that to a smart object, so I had that kind of hanging out. Converted this to a smart object, so I had that hanging out. And then from here, I can apply my puppet warp and just continue on with the whole thing. But you get the idea, right? So here's this. Here's this. And here's that, and then here's, that, and then just what you would just do your puppet warp thing that you would do, right? And then you would just Control Alt Shift E, and you'd call this 05 puppet warp, and you would just continue through each step of the way, Control Shift E, making a copy, and that's how you would apply that's how you would make the copy, and then you'd pop it down here, right? And so along the way, your process GIF is being built, but you are keeping your different, your background and your cutout. You're keeping those different, and then when you do the, vanishing point filter, you would just put that on a different layer, but you would copy it and so on. But the whole idea, though, is that once again, you just are able to see the various processes of background, photo added, mask applied, color corrections, puppet warp, right? And then it goes on and on and on, right? And so then once you do the liquefy, and then once you do the vanishing point, you just continue to copy those things with the Control-Alt-Shift-Command. If the Control-Alt-Shift-Command is not working for whatever reason, which, it's Photoshop, so hey, it might, you can just select both, you can duplicate them, and then once they're duplicated, you can right-click and you can merge them, and then there's the same thing, essentially. Right, so does the same thing, without harming your other layers. Okay, so that's the basic, kind of step-by-step stuff. Everything else you already know. All right, cool. See you in class.